Hello, everybody. Welcome to Championship Bowling here from the beautiful University Lanes in Toledo, Ohio. This is Fred Wolf with Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament, and we now reach the third round where things begin to get quite important. If you've been with us over the past weeks, we started with a field of 24 of the world's outstanding bowling stars in match game competition with a purse of some $60,000. 12 winners after the first 12 matches. Now we have 6 winners as we start the third round. We have Steve Nagy, the big boy from St. Louis, Ned-Day from West Allis, Wisconsin, who will meet here this week at the University Lanes with a winner, of course, going into the semifinals. Let's bring them out here, introducing first with a couple of 680 totals and winning 2 matches 5 times, the world's individual match game champion, Ned-Day. Ned? Well, Ned, after last week, and I think you had a chance to see our match last week, you boys have quite a job cut out here if you want to do anything better than that.
Yes, we certainly have.
But I know the one thing on your mind is to win to move into the semifinals. If you can get 525 and win, that'd be all right with you, wouldn't it?
I'd take it.
You take 525.
And win.
And win.
Yes.
All right. I got a hunch you'll need more than that because we bring out a fellow who's done a tremendous job on championship bowling over the years, a fellow who actually rolled a 300 score on championship bowling on a previous series. We call him Muscles, and boy, he's got him. From St. Louis, Big Steve Nagy. Steve? Hi, Stevie. How are you?
Fine.
Very good. You're both in good shape?
Yes, sir.
No excuses?
No, sir.
Good. I'll go over the rules briefly. I know you're acquainted with them. For our television audience, $1,000 to the winner, $300 to the loser, an additional $50, $75, $100 to the winner of each of the 3 games. Is that clear?
That's right.
$10,000 for the perfect score. Steve, you've gone through this before. It should be simple.
Yeah.
Should be simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says, yeah. Ned, how many 300 scores have you rolled?
I have 83, Freddie.
83?
Yes.
Your 84th would be quite a thing, wouldn't it?
Well, I'd certainly be happy with it.
Happy. Now, there's been a toss of the coin for the starting alley. Who won the toss?
I won the toss.
What is your choice?
I want to start on 3.
You will start on the left side. You will start there the first and third game. Ned, you will start there game number 2. Gentlemen, a shake of the hands. Toledo, here we come, and look up. Steve Nagy winning the toss, electing to start on the left side. 3 games, total pins, will decide the winner. 2 men who have both won 2 matches. Nagy is on the Brooklyn side. What do you know about that? In 2 matches, 6 games, Nagy averaging 217. Ned-Day with 2 680 totals, averaging 227. Day shot 683 to defeat Thurman Gibson of Detroit in the first round. He shot 684 in a thriller to defeat Joe Filio of Toledo in the second round. Day in the first frame throws. He's there. Strike. So we continue, starting round number 3. Steve Nagy versus Ned-Day on Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament from the University Lanes in Toledo, Ohio. The original field of 24 men now has been reduced to 6. Next week you'll see Harry Smith and Eddie Kowalik. 2 weeks from today you will see Al Savas and the fabulous Glenn Allison, who shot 782 last week. Day throws. He's there, a little too tight. He leaves the 610, and Ned's a little disappointed. Gave it a little whip there right at the instant that he released the ball. So Steve Nagy, who started with the Joyzy for the Brooklyn strike, has a chance to get out to an early lead if he can make it count as Day goes cross alley at the 610. Ned-Day, born in Los Angeles, 1911 at the 610. Look out, he's got it. Covered. So Big Steve moves in on the right. Steve defeated Chuck Wagner of Chicago on the first match some weeks ago, 616 to 589. Some weeks later, defeated Eddie Marin of St. Paul, 687 to 625. So the big fella tries for 2. He does not carry the 4-pin. Just a bit tight. Steve, who admits to 222 pounds, born in Schoaf, Pennsylvania, moved to Cleveland as a youngster. Steve's father, many years ago, was the manager of 3 lanes in the basement of a church. By trade, Steve Nagy is a wood carver. Got the spare. And this, of course, is not a gag, as we have been accused of. Actually, Steve was a woodworker long before he mastered this great sport of bowling. But here he is many years later, still making a living by carving up the wood, and he carves up these Brunswick Dura-King plastic-coated pins very well. He has won practically every title a man can win. Once more, 2 high, 3 pins. So Steve has been Brooklyn and nose on the left side in 2 frames. It's early. A lot of things can happen. In Steve's last match against Eddie Marin, he had 1 strike in the first 9 frames, finally got a double in the 10th for 197 to lose the first game by 26 pins. He's got the spare. But after that, he didn't miss the pocket more than once or twice, turning in a 256 and a 234 for 687. And that has moved him into round 3 here on Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament. Fred Wolf, along with our statistician, Joe Norris. Ned-Day steps up in the 3rd. Ned throws in, carries. So Ned-Day, one of the great stylists in this game, a fellow who has written many books, who has appeared nationwide, in fact has toured the world, a member of the American Bowling Congress Hall of Fame, 5 times the National Individual Match Game champion, twice named the Bowler of the Year by the Bowling Writers Association of America. He has won just about everything that can be won, and he is a bit tight again, and he leaves the 4-7. Certainly didn't seem to be that high, did it? So Ned, with 2 strikes on the right, has been unable to get his double. And we have pointed out week after week, the first double is the important one. It's to break the ice, and the boys will all tell you, the sooner they can get their first double, the better they'll feel about the whole thing. Hurry up. It's there. So it's a break for Steve Nagy. Day missing 2 chances for doubles on the left as Big Steve moves in on the right side. 5 steps, 3-finger ball, fingertip. Fingers actually in the ball only to the first joint as he gives it the turn, and he's too high again, leaves the 4-7. On another previous series of championship bowling, Big Steve shot a perfect score. If he can do that this week, or if he can win today and come back again in the semifinals, it'll be worth $10,000. At the 4-7, Steve has the spare. As a matter of record, Steve also has shot 2 290 games on television. 1 in Chicago, 1 in Cleveland. We sure hope that you were with us last week when Glenn Ellison thrilled a capacity crowd here in Toledo, Ohio, shooting 782. His last game, 290, a spare, and 11 in a row. Great exhibition when he defeated George Howard. Too high again, wide open, 410. A groan from the crowd, and Mr. Nagy is a bit unhappy with the situation as he keeps crowding. And this is a complete change, actually. In his last appearance against Marin, we made some comment on the fact that Steve went through the entire first game with never being on the nose. In fact, he missed a head pin twice. Doesn't get it. Playing it pretty careful, getting the feel of keeping the ball away from the nose, and then, of course, racked up about 490 in his next 2 games. So in this match, Steve has crowded the head pin 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row. after a Brooklyn in the first frame. So actually, he's been high 5 times. Day with a strike. Well, Ned getting some wonderful action as he crowds the 4-7, and Day will move to the left now for the 3rd consecutive time, looking for his first double. At the end of 5, Nagy is 84 split, Day is 80, working on a strike. Ned-Day in the 6th, on the strike, on his knees. This time he takes care of the situation and gets the first double as he piles them up on the left side. Great action. The type of ball that Ned-Day has been famous for now for a quarter of a century. Lets the ball do the work and then lets the pins do their work. Here's Nagy. We're in the 6th. He throws too high again for 6 consecutive frames. Steve Nagy has been high. The 3-10, the baby split. This is rather unusual for a fellow who's been around as long as Nagy has to make 6 mistakes in a row, and they're the same. It's the same mistake. Too high. 3-10, doesn't get there. He's open. He didn't get there, leaving the 3-pin, and he is open now. 2 consecutive frames, 93 in the 6th. Ned-Day off to a running start. The winner here gets $1,000. The winner naturally moving into the semifinals is guaranteed a minimum of $2,000 with still a chance for the $10,000. Too high again, 7 in a row. 6 bowlers remaining in the starting field, from the starting field of 24. There will be 3 matches. Nagy against Day, which you are witnessing. Next week, Smith against Kowalik. Then Savas and Ellison. 3 winners will move out into the semifinals. 6-10 he has. Then the winner of the top bracket will meet the winner of the middle bracket in the first match. 1 versus 2. Then 2 will meet the winner of the Savas-Ellison match. And then 3 will meet 1. In other words, each of the semifinalists will bowl 6 games, with the low man, pinfall, dropping out. 8-10. There was a big surprise. That is the first 8-10 that we have seen on the right side, lane 4 here at University Lanes. We have had 3 of them, I believe, on the left side. You can remember Buzz Fazio having 1. George Howard had 1, and I believe somebody else had 1. This is the first one we've seen on the other side. So at the end of 7, Day, after a double, settles for 136. Steve Nagy is 93 with a spare. Day leading by some 23 pins. 3-6-10, and Day begins to crowd. So Ned-Day, who has shown us 6 consecutive 200 scores in winning his 2 matches, totaling 683 and 684, will have to show us 2 or 3 more strikes in the last 2 frames. He's got that shot. Nice work. So Ned now 136 spare. Ned will need a double to get up into the 200 bracket. Big Steve Nagy still can shoot 200, but he's going to have to keep one away from the pocket to do it. Away from the head pin, not the pocket. This time, he's there. Well, it's been a long wait for Mr. Nagy to keep a ball on the right side of the head pin. He did. He now has 113 with a strike. And Steve is the type of a fellow that once he gets off the ground will never stop. And Nagy gets his second chance for his first double. He throws it out. He is too high again, the 6-10. And Steve just can't give that ball enough room. The desire to keep the ball up there. And a few weeks back, we made some talk about the fact that these bowlers invariably, what percentage, I don't know, take a lot of figuring. 6-10, Steve going away. But when these bowlers, under these tremendous conditions, which of course put a lot of pressure on everybody, there's a lot of money at stake. Something like 4 out of 6 times, and I'm using that as a hypothetical percentage. 4 out of 6, they will be high when they do not strike. Got it. So Ned crowds the 4-pin and will need his first strike in the 10th to keep his record intact of never having been under 200. He opened against Thurman Gibson with 222. He opened against Joe Filio of Toledo with 203. In fact, he lost that game to Filio by 17 pins. Really came back. He's got room with that one. There it is. So Ned-Day, shooting over an 8-10 split that he picked up on a double, has hit the select figure, the 200 bracket. One more will give him 216, and he could very well have himself a very comfortable margin at the end of the first game. $1,000 going here to the winner, and a guaranteed $2,000 in the semifinals. The loser in the semifinals, one man will drop out. Hurry, hurry! Doesn't get there, he gets 8 of them. In case we confuse you, we will briefly tell you there are 6 men left. There will be 3 matches over the next 3 weeks. In the 3rd round, the 3 winners then go into the semifinals. They will meet each other, each bowler bowling 6 games. By total pinfall, we will eliminate the low man only. Got that? The low man of the 3 for 6 games will win $2,000, the consolation award, plus a beautiful trophy. The top 2 men will go into the finals to bowl 6 games. 5-pin. Gets a wiggle, a lot of action, but Nagy now beginning to realize that he has just been high too many times. Throws one out. It didn't come back. He leaves the king pin or the 5-pin. Steve, a member of the Brunswick Advisory Staff of Champions, very popular around the country, and by the way, a scratch golfer. Hits that ball a country mile, converts to 5-pin. Steve has rolled 28 perfect scores. One of them he'll never forget on championship bowling. 9 299s and 4 298s. Shot an 831 total in sanctioned competition in Columbus, Ohio. Here he comes. Doesn't get the 4-pin this time, so Steve Nagy with the lowest game that he has rolled thus far on championship bowling from Toledo, Ohio, 171. Ned-Day the winner with 204. We'll be back for game number 2. More action from Toledo, Fred Wolf. Along with Joe Norris, here's some action from our friends, your hosts. The scores for the first game, Steve Nagy, 171. Ned-Day the winner with 204. Ned? You have won the first $50, Ned. 204. You have a lead here of 33 pins. I don't feel you expected to be out in front by 30 pins with a 204 game.
No, I sure didn't, Freddie. I'm very fortunate. I'm thankful for the 30 pins, but they mean nothing, believe me.
They mean nothing. I'm afraid Mr. Nagy will be on fire here in the next 2. Ready for game number 2, Toledo? You ready? Here we go. It'll be Ned-Day with a lead of 33 pins, 204 to 171. The boys getting started a bit on the slow side here this week as Ned throws, gets there, thin, carries, and here we go. Ned-Day starting with a strike. First game, both boys got away with strikes, and here is Steve Nagy, the winner of 3 American Bowling Congress titles, and he is in there. Now, Steve Nagy, in his match against Eddie Marin in the 2nd round, lost the first game by 26 pins. He trails Ned-Day by 33. After starting with 190, he came back with 490 in the next 2 games, very seldom missing the pocket. Now, he's been high most of the time. He's been high almost every time on this side. That time he decided to throw it out. He gave it the lift. He even took the jump to the left, which means that he felt as though he threw it the way he wanted to throw it, but the ball didn't quite get enough of the pocket. So Steve did not get his first double. Steve only had 2 strikes the first game, and one of them was in the first frame. The 2-pin he has. So here is Ned-Day, 5 times the world's match game champion. Ned is the first bowler to ever average over 200 for 25 successive ABC tournaments. He's won 2 ABC titles. Won the All Events in 1948 in Detroit, too high. Oh, he got away with it! Ned-Day on the Brooklyn side, actually, it seemed rather tight for a Brooklyn. He got a lot of great action on the right side, the 610 spinning around with a little help. Mr. Ned-Day of West Allis, Wisconsin, one of the most popular members of the Brunswick Advisory staff. He has 2. He throws. He is too high, the 3-pin, unable to take advantage of the break in the second frame. Ned frowning, shaking his head, unable to understand why he keeps crowding on the left side. So Day now has picked up an additional 9 pins. He has a lead, actually, of around 40. We're in game number 2, the 3rd round of Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament. From the beautiful University Lanes here in Toledo, Ohio, the home of the University Lanes Singles Tournament. We're in the 3rd frame, 2nd game. Nagy throws, too high, wide open. 6-7. Steve has had the 4-10, which is actually the reverse of this one. He has had the baby split. He has missed them both. He still looks for his first double. Let's watch it. Oh, how close can you come? So Steve is open in the 3rd. Ned-Day has some 20 more pins to add to his margin. He leads by about 52 to 55. We're in the 4th, and Mr. Nagy's high again on the left side, and Steve knows exactly what's going on. He's getting a little bit disgusted with himself. Here's a fellow who is the 1959 American Bowling Congress 10-year average winner. And Steve Nagy has just changed bowling balls. At the 4-7, he's got it. Steve Nagy, who had 2 bowling balls on the rack, has changed. It'll be interesting to see if there is any improvement. Just feels that bowling ball had enough chance to do something for him. Now he's going to give the other one a chance as Day steps in the 5th. Day in the 4th. Hurry. Oh, look at that. There's the ball that many of you bowling fans over the years, if you've been around as long as your poor old announcer, this fella has been throwing that type of ball since well back. You can go back to the days of Joe Norris, and that's going back quite a long time. Day being a great star over the years. But this fella can still throw. Too high again, 6-pin. So Ned and Steve have suddenly found a monster here on the left side. Lane 3, the University Lanes. The boys keep crowding that head pin, not giving it room, as George Howard and Glenn Ellison did last week. Look out, Ned. Day having a little trouble with his footwork, just went past the 6-pin by a country mile on the right side, and Steve Nagy suddenly still is in this picture. Ned had a double, of course. Steve has yet to get his first double. Steve within 10 pins of his opponent here in game number 2 with a fill, and he's going to be there. He's got it. Now we move to the left side. Steve has had 3 or 4 strikes. He's had them all on the right side, outside of a Brooklyn here. At the end of 5, it's Nagy 67 strike. Day has 97 in the 5th. Nagy now, 6th frame, looking for his first double. Just a little high. That's the closest he's been to that pocket. Just a little tight. Looked like he might get it. A strike there by Nagy. The second game would have been even to the pin. Big Steve still trailing by 33 pins at the end of the first game. He's 10 pins down in this game. The margin, 43 pins. We are halfway into the 6th frame of game number 2. Spare by Nagy. So Steve, who opened with 197 against Eddie Marin in his last match, and then roared back with a 256, cannot duplicate that performance. He still is looking for his first double. Here is Day, Ned-Day in the 6th frame, back in the pocket, the 10-pin solid. Ned-Day of West Allis, Wisconsin. Ned attended the Marquette University for 2 years, was a member of the track team. Pretty fast of foot. In 1937, averaged 222 for the entire season in the Milwaukee All-Star Classic. West Allis, just outside of Milwaukee. And he's missed another cross-alley spare, throwing that ball out, and the ball just seems to get off Ned's hand, and he threw it in the channel, shooting at the 6th pin, which is unusual, at the 10 pin in the channel. So Steve Nagy, who is having all kinds of troubles. Of course, Ned-Day's having a bit of trouble, let's say, but this match is going to be a close one, regardless of the scores. There, he's got it. So Ned gets himself a strike on the left side after 2 successive misses. So for Day, it's 106 strikes. Steve Nagy steps up in the 7th frame with 86 in the 5th, working on a spare in the 6th. Nagy throwing Brooklyn, and he got away with it. So Steve Nagy, certainly not himself. He's been on the left side twice for a couple of Brooklyns or Joyce's. So both boys are on strikes in the 7th. The match, game number 2, even to the pin. Ned-Day still leading by 33. We're in the 8th. Steve throws. He's too high. And that, of course, is no news on the left side. Steve has been high most of the way. He has 1 strike on the left side, and that, of course, was on the Brooklyn side. That was in the 1st frame of the 1st game. We're in the 8th. Big Steve Nagy does not have a double. So Ned-Day, who has been more or less confused, his footwork suddenly going sour on him, missing the 6 pin and the 10 pin in succession. Comes back with a strike in the 7th. He started this game with a double, with a Brooklyn, by the way. Let's see what he can do with a strike to add to his margin. Ah, he's got the line there. Yes, sir. A little more speed, and Mr. Day lifted that ball beautifully, lined it in the 1-3 pocket, and he now begins to add up a total here that Mr. Nagy may find trouble dealing with when the boys reach the end of game number 2. Ned has picked up 10 more pins. He has a lead of 43. He has a chance to make it 53. He's on the strike in the 8th. Nagy's on the spare. Day's winnings up to this game, 2,262.50. That's the ball. Look at that action. The Brunswick Dura King plastic-coated pins are jumping, and Mr. Day has a triple, and what a comeback this fellow was making after missing 2 1-pin spares when he had trouble with his feet. 3 strikes. Nagy in the 9th. Doesn't get there. Has the 2-5-8. A very difficult shot. And Steve is certainly having his problems. Steve, who totaled 616 and 687. with his 171 start here in this match, he's still averaging 210. Ned-Day averaging 224 for the 7 games. 2, 5, 8. Nice shot. So a person might say, well, if he can take a spare like the 258 and put that ball exactly where it's supposed to go, enough of the 2-pin to follow through and hit the 8, why can't he put the ball in the pocket? Well, I can't answer that question. Maybe Big Steve can. Here's lane 3, left side. He does not have a pocket strike yet. There it is, first one. Well, I don't know whether we talked Steve into that one or not, but we just kind of felt that it's about time. 20 frames this man has bowled, and he does yet show a double. In his previous match with Eddie Marin, he didn't get a double until the 10th frame of the first game. Now he has a chance to get his first double in the 10th frame of the second game. Steve Nagy, ready, throws, he's there, he's in, he carries. The first double in 2 games. As Steve Nagy with the count will check in here with 193. That means that Ned-Day needs a mark to win the second game. Actually, Day could get a 9-pin count, 8-pin and 9, and get away with it by a pin or 2. Oh, look out. So Big Steve now is back on the line. He has 10 frames to do something sensational and pull this one out of the fire. A lot depends actually here on this frame. Ned-Day actually with 2 strikes can check out of here with 226. Every strike he gets is 10 more pins on his side. If he does not strike, of course he loses 10, at least in the 10th frame with Nagy's double. Day ready in the 10th throws. He's got to hurry. Doesn't get there, a 6-pin count, and that simply means that he's got to make this spare to win the second game. Nagy can still win the second game. So here we find 2 boys, both in trouble at the same time. After last week's match between Glenn Ellison and George Howard, which thrilled a capacity crowd here at the University Lanes in Toledo, this is a different kind of a match, and Mr. Day has missed a spare. So for Steve Nagy, it is 193. For Ned-Day, 188. So the margin now is not too many. So a big game to follow, the third game. Not only the $1,000 hanging in the balance, but a guaranteed $2,000 in the semifinals, possibly $10,000, which goes to the winner in the finals. So don't go away. There's a lot of action. Fred Wolf here with it. Now a word from our hosts.
The scores for the second game, Ned-Day 188. He has a total of 392. Steve Nagy, the winner, with 193. The total 364. Steve? Steve, you win the $75.
Donation.
Didn't think you were going to win that one, did you?
No, I donated that one.
How about the total? Think you can catch him? You've got about
I
28 pins.
Not the way my ball's working today.
You don't think you can do it? Well, let's quit now then.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
I gotta go for that last game, that 100.
You think you really go after it? All right, let's
No.
give both boys a little help. I think we can get a big one out of here.
Steve Nagy trailing by 28 pins. The third and final game. It's a big one. A lot at stake. The $1,000 in this match. A guaranteed $2,000 in the semifinals. Possibly 10 in the grand finals. And Steve starts with a strike. And Ned-Day, who has the advantage, but who has been constantly in trouble. He missed 3 spares in the last game. The 6-pin, the 10-pin, and the bucket. And he missed every one of them by a foot. Day having some footwork trouble. May get out of it. He has the lead. At least Nagy's going to have to get him. And Day is high. 3-pin. Got a break. Had the 310 up there. Day, who came into this match averaging 227 for his 2 victories.
He had 683 when he defeated Thurman Gibson of Detroit. He had 684 when he defeated Joe Filio of Toledo. That was a thriller. Day winning 684 to 663. This week, he's having troubles. Nagy having more trouble. So at the end of the first frame, Day with a spare, Nagy with a strike. He has one double. Actually, he finished the second game with 3 strikes in the 10th. So let's give credit where credit is due. Nagy actually has now thrown 4 in a row. But he'd rather get 4 in the middle of the game than getting 3 on the end of one and 1 to begin the other. Day throws, too high, 6-10. So Day hasn't been in that pocket since the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And that was a peculiar triple, actually. It followed the miss of a 6-pin, the miss of a 10-pin, then the triple, then the bucket, which, of course, isn't too far away from a pocket hit. Ned was just probably a half inch to an inch away from the hit he wanted in the 10th, but he left the bucket and he missed it. 6-10, cross alley, and this time he almost picked it. Ooh, Ned has had his problems on the right side. He didn't want to throw it out too far because he threw one in the channel on a 10-pin the last time, and here's Nagy. A double here puts this big boy right in the running, and he throws it out, and he's high, too high. 3-10, baby split. Steve can't throw that ball away from the nose. 3-10, the idea here, naturally, put the ball between the 2 pins. So Steve Nagy, the 1959 National Match Game champion, twice the bowler of the year, puts the ball between the 3-10, but he gets too much of the 3-pin, leaves the 10, and he's open on his strike. So Ned-Day now has himself some 38 pins to work on, and he's got 8 frames to hold on to them. So there is a possibility here that someone might win this match without shooting 600. Cool, there he is. So Steve now has picked up the left side. That's 2 in a row over there. In fact, it's 5 in a row. He finished there with 3. He has 5 in a row on the left side and can't pick up the strike on the right. So Ned-Day now trying to fill up the frames, taking his chances as to whether or not Nagy can get the string that he needs. In the third, throws, he's there, he carries. Ned-Day from West Dallas, Wisconsin. Ned was born in Los Angeles in 1911, moved to West Dallas, Wisconsin as a youngster. And the story is he was walking past Hank Marino's bowling establishment in Milwaukee when he was 19 years old. He was a great golfer at that time. Thought he'd try it. Rolled 63 in his first game. There we are. Ned beginning to reach out with that ball and throw a little more speed. Not giving too much concern to that beautiful follow-through that Ned is known for. So he's going to throw the picture book away and go to work. Here's Nagy throwing. He is too high. 4-7. Steve started out hitting the right side, couldn't hit the left. Now he's hitting the left, can't hit the right, which is the sign of complete confusion. When you're on the strike, you press. When you're on the spare, it's much easier. So Ned-Day beginning to pile up a lead here that seems to be a little too much for Nagy to handle. He's got the spare. We now are at the end of 4. Day, potential 68. That's a lead of 20 pins. He had a lead of 24. Lead of 28. So Ned actually has 48 pins. He has 6 frames to hold on. And Steve has missed the head pin, the 1-2-8. So here we find 2 of the game's greatest stars having troubles just as you and I. When you haven't got it, you haven't got it. Let's face it.
Look out, Steve. Mr. Nagy hasn't got it this week. We know that he's had it. We know he'll have it again. But as of this moment, Ned-Day will stumble home. And Ned has been stumbling. He's looking down at the approach, trying to find some place to start from. He's on the double. He's got to hurry, hurry, hurry. Gets there, 7-pin. Good hit, a lot of action. But Ned not getting a piece of the 7. Nothing touched it. We're here at the beautiful University Lanes in Toledo, Ohio. 32. Brunswick Lanes. Brunswick equipment used exclusively with our tournament pins. ABC sanctioned competition as Day converts the 7-pin, and he wasn't too sure of that. He's having trouble with his footwork, there's no doubt about that. At the end of 5, it's Nagy 74 with his miss. Day is 87, working on a spare. Too high, Ned. 6-10. Ned almost picked this one earlier in this game. Almost took the 6 right off the 10. Ned has shot at the 6 alone in the second game. Threw it in the channel. He was that far off. Next frame, he shot at the 10-pin. Same place. He missed them both. Then he had the 6-10 in the second frame of this game and almost picked it. This time, he just made it going away on the left side. So we've seen a little of everything. And after last week, when the boys threw so many strikes we could hardly count them, this is a welcome change. We see both sides of this great sport. Nagy throws. He's there. He carries. So Steve Nagy going into the 7th with a strike, trailing by 31 pins here in game number 3 with $100 at stake. It's an additional bonus. The winner here will receive $1,000 and move on into the semifinals. We're in the 3rd round of Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament. 6 men left. The starting field of 24. Oh, he's still got it left. He's still got it. Let's do a little speculation. Nagy with 74 in the 5th. Strike him out. Add 150 to that. You'll give him 224. Day has a lead of 28. So he would need roughly 197 to win, and he hasn't got it yet. Ned-Day will have to mark all the way without an open frame to get 197 or better, which is what he definitely needs to shut the door in Nagy's face. Steve has 3 frames. He has room for 5 strikes and 224, which would give him 588. Day needs 197 for 589. Oh, look out, Ned. I thought he was long gone past that one. So we go into the 8th frame. Who knows? There are 3 frames left. You never give up when you can throw the ball like Steve Nagy can throw it. But Ned-Day can lock it up just by nursing the last 3 frames, by filling all of them with reasonable counts as Ned throws, and he's there. He carries. So it's Big Steve now, stepping up in the 8th frame. If he gets this one and gets the next one, Mr. Ned-Day has got to pay attention. Steve ready. He's winding up. He throws it out. He's in there, and he carries. Don't go away. Well, this could be the biggest surprise of your life, and mine, too, should something like this happen. Steve has got to have the strike. If he does not strike, Ned can practically stumble in the last 2 frames. But if he gets this one, Mr. Day has got to pay attention. Nagy is on 3. It's the first triple he's had in the middle of a game. He throws it out. Here it comes. He's there. And now Steve Nagy comes from nowhere with 4 in a row. And Ned-Day must fill in the next 2 frames. Now Day will finish. Day will bowl his last 2 frames. If he shoots 197, Big Steve is all through. If he has a unfortunate situation to where he has an open frame, Big Steve will step up in the 10th frame needing 2 strikes to win. And Day throws in the 9th. He's up, he's in, he carries for the double, and Ned-Day is home free. He cannot lose. The double 1, of course, for Ned-Day. He can still miss and have 197. So Steve just came too late. The 128 that he missed in the 5th, of course, the 310 that he missed in the 2nd frame. If you just speak of this, the 3rd game, but he had all his troubles for 2 games. Ned is in again. Ned-Day, who has certainly bowled over some problems here this week, bouncing back brilliantly for a 230 game with this strike to get out of this thing with a 626 total with this strike. And certainly he didn't look that good. He had 3 misses, easy misses, the 6-pin, the 10-pin, the bucket. He's had an 8-10. Couldn't bunch strikes as he throws another one. He's there. Well, I would imagine to the average non-bowler who might be looking in on championship bowling this week, you might be sitting there scratching your head wondering what these boys have been doing for the past 45 minutes. And if you were to ask me, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know. After all, we're all human beings. And there's a lot goes on in the minds of these fellas. There is tremendous pressure as it mounts up week after week as we reach the end to crown a champion. Look at that. Perfection personified. Ned-Day finishing with 5 in a row for 234, and he has put Mr. Steve Nagy out of business, coming out of that one very nicely. 626. Look at here. Steve shrugging his shoulders. Where have I been? What is this? Steve has a comment to the folks in the front row. Simply says, well, I need a couple of more years in this game and I'll be able to shake off all of this pressure. That actually was a $3,000 game for Ned-Day. That's the minimum. Yep. Nagy walks away, nothing to it, as he now makes it 6 in a row. He couldn't buy a strike for 3 games, at least 2.5 games. Now, we struck Nagy out. If you recall, we talked about giving him 150 on top of his 74 in the 5th. And that's exactly what he's going to get if he gets this strike. Ned, of course, struck out and sewed it up. There's another one. Look at this. Look at this. Isn't this amazing? Well, almost looked like Steve just wasn't with us for the first game and a half. The final scores here in the 3rd game, Steve Nagy 224, Ned-Day 234. A word with the great champions and a little word about next week's match here in the finals of the Championship Bowling's All-Star Tournament. Fred Wolf now with an invitation to you to pay attention to these words from our hosts. Before the final results of this match, we have with us again the world's great bowling professor with Championship Bowling's tip of the week, and it's Joe Willman. Again, Joe, how are you?
Fine, Freddie.
My game is bad. I need help.
Well, I'm going to talk today about how to slow the ball down. Does that apply to you?
I think so.
Okay, fine. Are you throwing that ball too fast? Here's a few suggestions on how you can slow your ball down. Number 1, walk down to that foul line. Don't race yourself down there because that builds up speed. Number 2, try a slower arm swing. If that doesn't work, try shorter steps. Move up a little bit on the approach so you can't take long steps. Check your backswing. Maybe you're bringing that ball way high in back of you. Less backswing will slow that ball down. Hold the ball a little lower, and if necessary, bend over a little bit to give you a little less arm swing. It's my bowling tip for today. I'll be back next week with another one. Here's Freddie Wolf.
Thank you very much, Joe. See you next week. And now here are the final results. Steve Nagy, his last game, 224. You put that with a 171 and 193. The total was 588. For Ned-Day, 204 and 188. A tremendous finish with 234. His total, 626. It was a close one. I'm sure you folks here enjoyed it, didn't you? Steve, there's the loser's share. You finished with, let's see, you finished with 7 strikes in a row. Where were you the other 2.5 games? Were you here?
I was changing balls or something.
Yeah, you sure were. Well, it was a great finish, and you did put Ned on the spot in the last frame, by the way. You know that, don't you?
I didn't notice that, but I know one thing. I couldn't lose to a nicer fella.
Isn't that
I
nice?
want to congratulate you.
Thank you, Steve. Very
Well,
much.
there you are.
Thank you.
Ned, there's the winner, $100 for the winner of the third game. There's another $1,000. That means you move into the semifinals. We'll see you again in a few weeks as we go around with the 3 semifinalists. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And it was a great finish. Thank you, men. Well, we now move out into the semifinals. The winner here is Ned-Day. Next week here on Championship Bowling from the beautiful University Lanes in Toledo, Ohio, it'll be Harry Smith, the jumping jack from St. Louis. His opponent, the veteran from Chicago, Eddie Kowalik. It should be a good one. This is Fred Wolf inviting you to be with us. And in the meantime, just reminding you that you don't have to play a sport good to be a good sport. Goodbye.